Yeah. Woo!
Schadenfreude is pleasure derived from the misfortunes of others.
We took the arrow, but it
should have.
No.
So how could you get lost if you took the arrow? Karma.
It said right, we went right. We went under like driveway.
Yeah, because there's the quick left on O'Byrne. I did. You get on O'Byrne, and right away you go left in the forest.
What? You're going the wrong way! He says we're going the wrong way. Oh, he's drunk.
What?
So we were on the path.
Hey guys, Dr. Alex Ritzy here, the Cycling Doc, and I'm going to tell you all about the 2021 Hell of the North race that happened last year in November. Why am I doing a video on it now? Because turns out if you have an 11-year-old MacBook Pro, you cannot make a YouTube video with GoPro footage without it sounding like a spacecraft. So I'm going to tell you how the race went down. I'm going to give you a little bit of recap of some strategy, what to do and what not to do if you're going to do this race. And really this video is for, hey, if you know me, you might want to know what I do on the weekends and get into cycling some more yourself and see why it's awesome. And then a little bit more so of if you live in Ontario, if you're going to do this race in 2022 or beyond, give you a heads up on the course, i.e. don't do what I did, nutrition, clothing, what bike to use, what tires to use, and just give an overall recap of what went down. So guys, let's get into it. So the race was about 92 kilometers. You can see I did a couple of extra K, which we will get into, mostly road. So of those 92K, I think about 20 were on gravel. Some of that was on some pretty gnarly double or single track. Some of that was on some fairly typical gravel that you would see here in Ontario that's, you know, manageable on a road bike. And then some of it was on some rail trail. But one thing with the course is that you had to use a gravel style or cyclocross style tire because some of the sections were so muddy and so gnarly that a road tire would never make it through. Now you can see people waving through, and that's because, whoa, huge tractor coming through. We are on an open course, so yes, yellow line rule is in place. There is traffic that we are navigating. There are some places where it was kind of tough to figure out where we were going. You can see I almost missed a turn there. And for the most part, you're having to stop at all the stop signs and all the intersections, which does come into how the race played out, where sometimes you might get held up from chasing because of a car coming at a four-way or a two-way stop, or you might get stuck at a traffic light. So in some cases this helped me, and in some cases it could really hurt you, and especially at the start of the race you're going to want to stay with the pack and as close to the front as you can so that you do not get dislodged because of getting stuck at a traffic light. So for the race, I use my Giant TCX. It is an aluminum cross bike, but is my gravel, my cross, my commuter in the winter. I had 45 millimeter woven carbon fiber gravel tires or gravel wheels on. In terms of tires, I use the 37 millimeter WTB Riddler. If I'm gonna do the race again, I'm definitely gonna use a file tread unless it's terribly, terribly muddy. I would probably go with a larger size file tread because there is so much road on it. Now, normally this race is held in the spring. It is very hell of the north in the spring from what I've told. Lots of mud, maybe even way, way more difficult and gnarly than this race already was. So maybe this tire would be a little bit better then, but probably gonna want something a little bit wider with a little bit more of a file tread. In terms of nutrition, there is no nutrition available on the course, or if there is some Gatorade, you're definitely not going to want to stop if you are actually racing this race. So I used 3 water bottles. I had about 60-70 grams of carbohydrate in each bottle, and I had additional gels and nutrition on board because you're gonna need to carry everything that you have. If it's a little bit colder, a hydration pack would be perfect, but this day was super warm and beautiful for November, probably one of the nicest fall days in the Toronto area that I can remember, so it was absolutely an incredible day to be racing. For today's race, it is a pretty heavy, in this case, left to right wind for what you guys are watching as we are heading north across the course. So I absolutely loved the rolling start. We all packed in behind Enfiel's van, and eventually the car horn went. We took off, went from, rolling at 25-30K up instantly up into the 40s, 50s, and 60s on some of the downhill sections. You'll notice that some people definitely do not look super comfortable on their bike, and keep in mind this is probably 2 years since most people here in Ontario have done any racing, and the first part of the race was pretty sketchy. So people not looking super comfortable on their bike, yellow line rule not being really followed, and a lot of jitters on the bike with people just being very, very twitchy. My elbows were out and I was being extra cautious to not crash and not have to go to the hospital on the first race back in 2 years. At one point, a few bike lengths in front of me, somebody spoke, exploded, sounded like a gunshot went off, and you can't really see it as well in this video, but it looked like their wheel went basically horizontal, and it was kind of sketchy dodging this cannonball flying back through the peloton, so definitely that was a wake-up call to start off the race. But after that little mishap in the peloton, we rolled forward basically together for about 15 kilometers. The pace was really, really reasonable. It wasn't too hard to stay in. I was kind of just sticking to myself in the middle of the pack. At one point, the entire peloton even got hung up at a red light together, and we hung out there for about a minute, and then we continued on. So the first major split I should have been prepared for. This is not actual footage. I didn't have the GoPro turned on, but when we made this turn off of Herald onto Kennedy Road, there's a decent sized hill right beside the gun range, and I just found myself too far back in the middle of the pack to be able to cross past anyone, especially with the yellow line rule. So a group of 20 got ahead, and owing to the design of the race, they got hung up at Mount Albert Road waiting for some cars to pass. And after a massive effort by me and some others, we were able to latch back on as we made the big push towards Bogue Road. So most of the peloton was together at this point. Race intensity was up. My heart rate was up in the 150s, 160s out of a max 180. So needless to say, we were working pretty hard. And I had dodged the first bullet knowing that I was not split off from the group there on that hill, and I was making my way to the front so that we went on to Bogue Road, which is a pretty gnarly section of double track that you can see here. I wanted to be closer to the front. I can see my good buddy Mike in front of me here, and at this point it is full gas. My heart rate is pretty maxed out, and owing to the GoPro 9 being so good, you can't actually see how bumpy and awful this road is, and I'm told it's even worse when you do the race in the spring, but it was muddy, it was bumpy. I had my tire pressure way too high. I think it was at 40, 50, maybe even 60, probably about 50, and I should have had it down in the 30s to make it a little bit easier on the day in general. At this point, I'm probably about 20, 25 people back. I'm feeling pretty good. You can see Mike, he just made a really great pass up there. And I'm being a little conservative because I'm not as good off-road. I just went through a gnarly dirt section and then boom, get caught up, get stuck in the mud. I go down, and at this point, heart rate is jacked. I'm just trying to get back up, and some nice soul passes me a water bottle that has fallen off. And so at this point, I'm gapped about 25, probably 30 seconds off of the first group. I, like a bunch of other people, are having to walk it for trees in the way, but also because this section is really muddy and it is really gnarly, and we are just doing our absolute best to try and get back on this Bogue Road section. We're a few hundred meters from making that left-hand turn, and this was by far the most decisive point in the race, where the most separation came, with all of groups kind of getting formed. So that front group, I think, was about 45, 50, 60 seconds up the road where we finally make this left-hand turn coming up. And as we make that left-hand turn, there's no real second group. It's kind of in shambles. But as we make the left, you're going to see the guys kind of pick up together, and we are chasing back on. So at one point, there were about 6 or 7 of us as we are heading north here towards Lake Simcoe. And we can see that first group off in the distance. They've probably got at this point about a minute on us. And I am absolutely floored at this point. The guy on my left side, who I think is Josh Witt, he was being an absolute beast. He towed us for a few 5-minute stretches. We did pull into rotation. I'm doing a pull here at the front. I'm down in my little puppy paws position because, hey, this is definitely not a UCI race. So we're doing turns. We've got a little cross headwind. We pick up another guy, Alex, right here, who is absolutely effed at this point, and I thought, no way this guy is gonna hang on. But you know, actually Alex comes back up to the front, and it's me, him, and Josh, and we are pulling turns until we get on here into this next gravel section, which is a rail trail. I think the segment is called the Trench, and I was expecting it to be much worse, but you can see here it's kind of a double track section. Road quality was really, really good. You could have had a big fat road tire on this, but like I said, for Bogue Road, that road tire would have ruined your chances and probably would have flatted you out. So this segment goes on for about 10 minutes. A bunch of people get tossed or flicked off the back, so it's Alex, Josh, and I, and we are pulling turns here, doing a pretty good job of keeping it around 2 or 3 minutes a man, and doing really, really good pulls. When I went back and looked at the data, the time split between us and the front group was, I think, about a minute, and stayed pretty even. We were able to pick up a couple of guys. They got flicked off the first group because the 3 of us are flying. We're probably doing 42 kilometers an hour. And then this group in front of us, they get stuck at this intersection waiting for some others. So I think we pick up about 5 or 6 guys, and we're trying to figure out where are we with respect to everybody else.
How many guys are ahead of you guys? Did you say 9 or 19? Okay, that's not bad.
So when I heard 9 guys, I was stoked because I knew I was feeling really good. I'd been feeling so well, and the guys that we had picked up there at the intersection were looking rough. The next segment of the race kind of went like this. We had trouble getting organized. We kind of just blobbed up for a little bit, and then with some yelling and some instruction, we managed to get some good pace lines going. We were doing about 1-minute turns, working really, really well together. At this point, there's not too many people in front of us, so we picked up the odd person as we went. But one issue came that when anytime we hit a hill, you know, those that still had gas left and that were strong, we went to the front. So it was Hudson just in front of me here, Alex and I. We would pull forward, and then the group would kind of catch back up. We hit a couple of really gnarly crosswind sections, so we're full echeloning across an open road with cars passing us on the yellow line. And it was in this section that Alex, Hudson, and I, we were just much, much stronger than the rest of the group. So on this slight little false flat, we took off and we went forward together, and we were going really good. We're pulling nice, easy turns, and by easy, I mean they were awful. 1 minute each. And I'm pretty sure this is the hill where I was so close to getting dropped. You know, we're 2 hours into the race. I've been averaging like 160 beats a minute, or at least high 150s. And I know for me that if I am north of 155, I am in trouble. So we're going south along that road you can see there for probably about 20-25 minutes, pulling turns. A couple guys come flying back at us who've been flicked off of the front group, who can't hold on. So at this point, like, we know we are doing really well. We know we are close to the top 10, and we are super motivated and super excited that we are gonna have a very good placing as long as we keep working together until things kind of went south and shit hit the fan.
Is this us? Yeah. Woo!
So the guys that we thought went off course did actually go off course, but you can see the sign here right on the left, that white thing. Yeah, we missed that. So we're heading west along this road. We're going down. We are going the wrong way, and we are super stoked that we are doing so well. until we hit this dead end.
I don't know, boys.
Fuck, are we off course? That is, dude, there's no sign though. No, no way.
So when I went back and looked at the flyby, we ended up spending about 9 minutes looking for the course, and I was super disappointed because, you know, the other dot there, Adam Miller, that guy's way faster than me, way stronger than me. Like, come on, Ivy League rower. But, you know, to be 1 minute behind him in a race, I was very excited. So you can see from that little dot, we went back and forth for about 10 minutes. Went from about being in 9th, 10th, and 11th place, like way back into the 20s, which was very disappointing. But, you know, we got on finally to this double track road, and there were certainly a lot of rage watts from all of us. We were cursing. We were very frustrated that we had been off course, and like definitely not the race organizer's fault, definitely not Ed Viral's fault. The funny thing is, in the parking lot, he had joked around with us about, yeah, no one's gonna get lost this year, and somebody does, definitely come and tell me. And we did at the start, but you could see that we clearly just missed the sign. So we've got about 20K left in the race, and we are going all out because we still want to finish super strong. We get off of that second last double track section, which was, you can see, really, really beautiful with all the falling leaves. At this point, Alex is ahead of me by 100 meters or so. I'm passing Hudson there on the left, and I am doing my utmost to try and get back onto Alex's wheel, who at this point is going really, really, really well. We eventually get reconnected. We pass through a gnarly single track section that I wish I had on camera because it had some really, really, really tough technical parts to it.
That's what I'm going for.
The part of the race I've been looking forward to the most is when we get here near Musselman Road, finally recognize some road, know how close we are to the end, and we get eventually mixed up with these group of guys on these rice rockets, and they look over at us a couple times like, what the hell are you guys doing? We're going about 50 kilometers an hour between them. And, you know, at this point, the race is over. Alex and I are definitely frustrated with what's gone on. We don't know where we're going to finish in the pack, but we give a super strong effort all the way into the finish line. We got the last turn here on the left, and I was really, really hoping that he wasn't going to sprint me at the end because A, probably would have lost, and B, you know, we just went together into the trenches and we worked pretty hard together for about an hour and a half. So we crossed the arm with a good handshake and ended off what was a pretty awesome day and a great way to kind of finish the outdoor season, at least for me, in 2021, which was a great year to be back on the bike. So after getting home and being absolutely floored, turns out we probably would have come in about 12th or 13th place out of the 70 or 80 guys that had started, which for me would have been a really great result. I was going pretty good at this point in the year and was super stoked with how things went overall. I think it's a good sign of a race when you cannot wait to do it next year, and I definitely feel like I need some vindication for missing the turn and have a much better idea of how to race it better next year and how to be a little bit more strategic. In terms of the day, like I said, if I'm over 165 beats a minute, that's typically my threshold, and to average 157 was a huge day. I wish I had power data, but I'm glad I did not have my Garmin pedals on with my road cleats. That would have been a bad choice. Anyways, guys, that's the 2021 Hell of the North race. Not Paris-Roubaix Hell of the North, but our Toronto edition. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you like this first race recap and breakdown. Any suggestions would be welcome in the comment box. And just keep in mind that making this video probably took between 10 and 12 hours. So it was my best effort, but I do want to make these better in the future. You guys take care.